Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, context is everything. Media Network founder and CEO John Michael is reading another textbook. This is a American history textbook from the year 1940. That would be 40, before we entered World War II, the United States. This is an American history textbook from a Catholic school. Slavery in the Union, Chapter 9, Section 5. Or is it Section 6? After the South after the Civil War. A wasted land. Confederate soldiers returned home after the Civil War saw things to bring tears to their eyes. Often a soldier found that his house had been burned to the ground, fruit trees were cut down, fields were destroyed, and his cattle had been driven away. These misfortunes were bad enough, but he had still other worries. What was the United States government going to do with him? How would Congress treat southern states? What was the United States government going to do with him? How would the Congress treat the southern states that had tried to leave the Union? These were questions that caused great worry. Reconstruction. President Abraham Lincoln realized how terribly the South had suffered. He had planned to help restore the South. The South had to be reconstructed. This means that the southern states had to be reorganized as parts of the United States. Lincoln's plan was called the President's Plan for Reconstruction. We can easily learn how Lincoln wanted to handle Reconstruction. We have only to read one of his greatest speeches. This speech was made when he was inaugurated as president for the second time. With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the rights of God gives us to see the rights to let's strive. Let's try again. With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to build up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and within all nations. That's a long sentence. Honest Abe. Death of Lincoln. Before he could carry out his plan, Lincoln was murdered. The president was sitting in the box at a theater on Good Friday of 1865. Behind him crept a desperate man, a man maddened by the defeat of the South. He shot Abraham Lincoln, and the great president died the next morning. Vice President Andrew Johnson succeeded President Lincoln. The punishment of the South. President Andrew Johnson meant well. It was too bad that he quarreled with some of the members of Congress. There were men in Congress who had a plan of their own for the South. It was a cruel plan. Unfortunately, these men had their way, and the so-called plan of Congress went into effect. This really hindered rather than helped the South. According to the plan, Congress many of the best white people of the South were not allowed to vote or hold office. On the other hand, the Negro ex-slaves were allowed to vote. Evil men from the North and South saw that this was their chance to gain power. They planned to fool the Negroes into electing them into office. The evil men from the North were called carpetbaggers because everything they owned could be carried in a small carpet bag, and dishonest Southerners called them scalawags. By their neighbors, carpetbaggers and scalawags were dishonest men. They raised taxes very high to get the money. Much of this public money they took for themselves. Thousands of Southern people were ruined by these evil men. The South suffered for 20 years from this kind of evil doing. Interesting. This book's from 1940. If you don't like the word Negro and you're wondering why I'm saying it, it's because I'm reading a book from the year 1940, before we entered World War II. The end of Reconstruction. Ulysses S. Grant was elected President of the United States. He served from 1869 to 1877. He listened to the politicians who hated the South, and so the South continued to suffer. After Grant came President Rutherford B. Hayes. Hayes ordered the last of the United States troops to leave the South. The South must now take a hold and begin to reconstruct itself. Southern leaders began to take an interest once again in not only local but in national politics. The Southern states began to manage their own affairs. It took the South a long time to recover from the Civil War and the terrible years of Reconstruction. That's it. Quick one. Have a lovely day. God bless and goodbye. If you made it this far, please subscribe to the Context is Everything Media Network.